sitting on my doorstep, the people's passing by. They're coming back from getting wrecked. Everybody's high. Saturday night, what a bitch, laying on the lawn. The morning comes to bring the switch after the buzz is gone.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Addictions, the podcast about addictions. I'm your host, David Wagner. On this episode, we are speaking with a listener from the state of Texas who wanted to share his story of addiction, struggle, and recovery. But before we get started, I wanted to let everyone know about our brand new website, which you can find at www.addictionspodcast.com. From there, you can find all of our previous episodes of the show. You can support the show by donating to our PayPal account, and you can find all kinds of useful links to other resources about addiction. And don't forget to be sure and follow us on Twitter if you're into that sort of thing. You can find us at twitter.com/addictionscast. You can also contact us with questions or suggestions for the show, or even your own personal stories of addiction by sending us an email at theaddictionspodcast@gmail.com. As always, you can remain 100% anonymous. Now, enough of my crap. Let's get to my conversation with this week's guest. Enjoy. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Addictions, the podcast about addictions. Today I'm joined by a really special guest, Gary Chorzewski. He kind of reached out to the show through messaging us, and he wanted to share his story of kind of what he went through through his addiction. And now, Gary, what exactly would you say started your problems with addiction?
I would say in the beginning, it was all fun in the beginnings.
Yeah.
I had a lot of oral surgeries done in the beginnings around age 14, and that's when I tried opiates for the first time.
Yeah.
Around those times, I already knew at 14 what it felt like to be high on opiates. And they were given to me by my mother, unfortunately. And it was nothing on her. It's not her fault. She just was giving me the medication that the doctors give her, to her to give me for pain, and
years ago, I really don't think that was incredibly uncommon either.
Absolutely not.
I actually ended up breaking a femur, 12, 13 years ago, and that's what really, I got high off opiates before, but it really took off after the car accident and the chronic pain and all that shit. It was just really rough.
Right. Yeah. It didn't even progress from that point on. I always, from that point, from being that young age, it was always marijuana and drinking. And, there was no repercussions at first. It was all a big party all the way up until age 28. And, it was all fun and games. And then, these oxycodones came around, these little blue pills, and they brought me to my knees, it was game over.
Yeah.
Now, I liked everything. I comboed everything,
Yeah.
I had problems with benzos and alcohol, and I could have, been killed plenty of times because of the combos that I, did.
In a previous episode, I spoke with a woman who recently lost her son to an overdose, but it was a combo thing, and it was Xanax and methadone, which really kind of opened my eyes because in the past, that'd been one of my favorite combos was to mix those two together, but that's incredibly dangerous, man, but when you're in the depths of addiction, it's hard to, it's easy to ignore the warning signs. It really is.
Yeah, it is. I was told, I've been rehab 4 times, and I've been told every time that, you keep mixing these things, you're going to die, and I don't, every time I don't think anything of it. I just think, well, if I combo these things, I could get higher.
Exactly. And that's, that's the mindset of the addict. I think that's one thing that all of us as addicts have, can share. So how long would you say was the worst portion of your addiction overall?
Well, from the last 6 years, basically 28 to 34.
Yeah.
I think that's 6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I jumped around. I'm from New Jersey, and I went down and did the South Florida thing. They call it the capital of recovery down there.
Yeah.
And I went down there and, got clean with they think is clean, and basically was, in, a halfway house down there. And I was like huffing duster down there.
Yeah.
And, doing all kinds of stupid stuff, saying I'm sober.
Yeah.
Not working the 12 steps and, stuff like that. And
yeah.
then I ended up getting back on opiates and going, my family members got me back in rehab, and I got a chance to come out to Austin, Texas. And, I took that chance, and that's where I've been for the last 3 years. Just last February, me and my fiance, 2 years previous, we've just been going downhill. We got really bad into heroin again. We never touched meth. We didn't even know what meth was like, but meth pretty much ruined me.
Yeah.
I'm already on a lot of a lot of psych drugs.
Yeah.
And I didn't come off them, and I didn't know the meth would just mess with me even more. So I went into like a psychotic coma, or not coma, like a psychosis.
Yeah, they call it amphetamine psychosis. And it can last a long time. I've heard, weeks even.
Yeah, they kept me in detox for about 2 weeks because of it.
Yeah. This
last time, on all kinds of drugs and shit. So I curse on here? Or?
Yeah, no problem, man.
Okay.
Of course.
Cool.
With the amphetamine psychosis, it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's terrible, but looking at it from the science kind of that goes behind it, it's kind of wild because, once you're in that amphetamine psychosis, your brain is just like on a whole different plane. It's like, all these thoughts of paranoia, and there's cameras and microphones everywhere, this kind of stuff, and, even hallucinations from what I've read about it. It can get pretty bad.
Yeah, there was all kinds of laser beams coming at me, and people were after my cats, and I let my cats go, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was absolutely insane, But I mean, thank God, me and my fiance got the help that we got, and we both, she ended up doing a 5-month treatment. I ended up going out to Tennessee and doing about 115 days treatment at a like a 12-step, like in the woods, Tennessee. Yeah. 12 steps all the way, which is really what I needed.
Yeah.
So we're both like 12-step all the way.
Yeah.
We go to meetings. We're really involved in Heroin Anonymous, which is pretty big out here in Austin. I know it's not big everywhere. Yeah, we're just we just do it. We've tried maintenance programs before, and they just don't work. So, I mean, I know they work for some people, but it's for me. Suboxone, that was just another thing to get high or sell to get high.
Yeah. I've talked to a lot of people about this. Whether NA or AA or replacement therapies like Suboxone or methadone or whatever. And a lot of times, there's definitely not a one size fits all solution for the addiction problem.
No, absolutely not.
So I think it should be kind of treated on a case by case basis. Everyone is unique, and we need to create as many resources and possibly routes to sobriety as possible as a society. And I think if they invested some money into that sort of thing, that you would see a dramatic increase in sobriety.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. I mean, even between me and my girlfriend, like, she's more involved in the actual book than I am. I mean, I'm all about, like, she gets mad at me sometimes. I mean, she goes to meetings too, but I go to a lot more meetings, and I do a lot less out of the book. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like you're saying, like, everything's different for every person, So I mean, whatever works. I mean, Dude, I'm amazed that I got a year sober, to tell you the truth, man.
That's fucking awesome. It's great. It really is.
Yeah, and I mean, before that, it was always something, man. Like, we were always making up excuses, saying like, you know what kratom is?
Yeah, yeah.
We were always saying, hey, kratom's not a relapse. I mean, it mimics an opiate. I mean, at the amounts that we were taking it at, I mean, it was so fucking close sometimes. I mean, we were taking on an empty stomach and taking such massive amounts of it. I mean, it comes down to, if you're really trying to make something change you that much, I feel like, then it's something, that's like a relapse.
Yeah, you've almost reached that desperation point, where you're going to do anything to get it. And I
right.
Like in my 7-year opioid addiction, I'm a musician. I have several, nice guitars and equipment and stuff that I've worked hard to earn. And, looking back, I've ended up selling so many, just really nice pieces of equipment at a really cheap price just so I could get a day's worth of, whatever.
Yeah.
The things that it causes people to do, Now, I'm not discounting that choices made under addiction are still choices that you're responsible for, definitely. Addiction does change the way that your brain works. There's a lot of evidence for that.
Yeah.
But I do still believe that there is personal responsibility involved, And most of us, when we do get sober, a lot of us end up trying to give back to the recovery community, That's the reason I started this podcast, was to kind of provide an outlet for, people who have been through the addiction issue, or, anyone that's even been touched by it, so that it would give people a voice. And I also feel like hearing other people talk about their personal addiction stories, it kind of, provides a certain solidarity for the listeners out there. It's kind of refreshing to hear other people talk about, the same kind of problems.
Right.
So
yeah,
what was the huge, breaking point for you that made you finally decide that this is something I've got to follow through with?
I mean, just this last time with the meth and the heroin, I absolutely scared the shit out of myself and my fiance.
Yeah.
I mean, like she said, she thought I was stuck forever. The way I was acting. The psychosis part. She thought I wasn't coming back. And the way that I felt, I didn't think it was ever going to end.
Yeah, that would be a total nightmare, man. I couldn't imagine it.
Oh, yeah. It was a total new, like pretty much a new drug for me. I I could do heroin all day long and know the results that are what's going to happen, But
how long would you say you were using the meth before all of the real negative kind of side effects started to manifest themselves?
Towards the end, it was shortly right before I went to rehab. But it was probably about a 4-day span.
Yeah. Yeah.
It didn't take very long, and it happens on the end part, like towards the end and coming off of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of the come down kind of sort of thing.
Yeah. It's crazy out here in Texas, though. It's everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. I would imagine that down south. See, I'm up here in Michigan, so a lot of the meth that you find here is either made in somebody's bathtub, and it's, you just can't trust the potency or the purity of it. And I would imagine that down south by the border, you're probably getting a much higher quality product. So it's
all Mexico.
Just amazing, though, and I commend you, man, for, pulling through and getting sober. One other question I kind of wanted to ask, because I'm not super familiar with methamphetamine. I've experimented with it in the past, but never had any addiction issues with it. But, when you're coming off of it, do you experience physical or mental withdrawals of any sort from methamphetamine?
Physically, I don't experience any physical, but mentally, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the psychosis is part of it, and that's what every time I can't come off of it, I'm in a weird. It's either a psychosis or a weird state of mind, either for 2 days, 3 days, at a time.
I found some really interesting. They're like infographics. They show a lot of statistics with illustrations and stuff, and I've got one about methamphetamine. I'll have to post that on the Facebook page for all the listeners to check out, because it's really interesting, and I learned a lot just by reading through these infographics. So I'll put those up on the website and the Facebook page.
Okay.
Really interesting stuff. Definitely worth checking out. I wish you the best of luck, man. And as I tell all my guests, never quit quitting, man. And if you ever have a moment of weakness, man, feel free to reach out to me. I try to tell that to all my guests, because the more people that you can have on your side to encourage you, the better. We're a community, man. We're all in this together.
Right. Absolutely, man. We are. I appreciate being on the show, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. And, I'd love to have you back in the future sometime.
Absolutely, man.
Well, cool. Thanks a bunch for coming on the show, man.
Thank you.
Right on. Well, again, I would like to thank Gary for coming on the show and sharing his story. And as always, I want to thank you, the listeners, for tuning in and listening to the show. It really means a lot to me. As always, you can listen to any of the previous episodes of the Addictions Podcast on our website, which you can find now at www.addictionspodcast.com. So be sure and check that out and follow us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/addictionspodcast. It's as simple as that. Again, thanks for listening. And remember, never quit quitting.
Spent your money freely, then you smashed your only car. You aren't what you are really. You missed it by so damn far. Your head feels like it's in a blender, and you hate to see the dawn. Your stomach says return to sender after the buzz is gone. And Sundays you prayed Uncle John. You poisoned yourself last night. Mary slapped your friend Tom. You got in a hell of a fight. Monday comes and it's back to work. The week seems so damn long. The weekend's past, you're still a jerk after the buzz is gone.